First things first, guys. How are you?
Good.
Very good.
Very good to hear. So before we talk about the album, I'd like to go back to the previous one.
Yes.
After having made the new album, how do you look back at that?
You know, I will say that I think we put our best foot forward with this newest record. You know, one of the things that we did that we haven't done in a long time is actually take a complete year off of working and touring to work on the record. And I always think that, you know, it's one of those sayings that a lot of people say, you know, a band has their whole life to write their first record, and then it becomes much shorter. And we feel the same way, that we got back to giving ourselves a lot of time and making sure that it was just perfect. And it's not to say that we're not proud of the last several records that we've had, but I will say that there's always a song here or there that I know if we had a little bit more time to write, we probably could have improved upon it a little bit. But this feels like the most cohesive, well-rounded, special record that we've made, in my opinion, since the Need You Now record.
And when in the process did you know that you needed this break?
Well, you know, we were finishing up a tour a few years ago, and I remember Charles came on the bus and said, guys, we've got to learn how to reapproach making an album. The past few we made in the same way. We wrote them on the road. They were during very busy times in our career. We were all over the place. And he said, we've got to figure out a way to do that. And it started with having a breather in life, living some life, having time to be at home. We all have families and kids, and we all had some projects we were working on outside of Lady Antebellum. And I think that year refueled us more than we've ever had. And so coming back into this record, Heartbreak, we had so many song ideas, so many ideas for the tour and what to do and where to go and traveling here. I mean, all these kind of new ideas emerged after having a rest. And so that was important, and that's even a little bit of the theme of Heartbreak in that song. There's even a little bit of a meaning of giving your heart a break, and that was what we did. We took about a year for us to reset and get back to the core of how we started as Lady Antebellum in 2006.
In that period, did you have a lot of contact with each other, especially early on?
We did.
We did. I mean, we played
A handful of shows.
like 30 shows, fairs and festivals through the summertime.
Sure.
So we saw each other a lot and kept up. Obviously, all of our kids. Well, Charles had their baby in February, and then you know, just kept in touch. But yeah, I mean, we're on a continual group message.
It was more of an artistic break than anything.
Right.
Just wanting to give ourselves a second to live life, enjoy families, enjoy some break. That way, when we came back together, we wrote so much for it. And you know, I think, you know, one of the things too, you know, when we started working on it, because we'd given ourselves a little bit of a break, it felt like it was all happening for the first time again. When we would write a song, you know, we hadn't written a song in so long that it was exciting, and we felt like every song we wrote was the best song we'd ever written, and that's a great feeling, you know. And so I don't know, it was just a special, very get back to the basics of who we you know, are as a group kind of time for us.
You mentioned earlier that it obviously the first album you have the most time for, and now I think this is the most time you took for an album after. So did it feel like the first album? Did you kind of reconnect to that spark that you?
I definitely think we did. There was so much reconnection because we got outside of the norm for us every day. You know, we all live in Nashville, and we recorded half the album in Nashville, but the other half we were in Los Angeles, and then before that we wrote in Florida at the beach with a handful of our songwriter friends and
a new producer.
So we just kind of stretched ourselves that way. You know, we all lived together in a house in Southern California, and it made for it feeling a lot like it did in the beginning, you know, because I would go over to where Charles and Dave were living. I would drive the same highway from college when I was still in, and I know exactly, you know, I can see it right now as I sit here, and I would go and we would write, and we would have no agenda. You know, we'd start 10 or 11 in the morning and go till 2 or 3 in the morning, and it just was, it was our life, and that's what we really tried to do with this. Our families all gave us their blessing. They came in to visit and then went back home, and we were just able to totally dive in to the creative parts of ourselves and making this record.
And reconnecting, I think, as friends and having fun again together. You know, I mean, the first year of us being a band 10, 11 years ago, I I mean, you have such an innocence at that point in time, and we have to be a little more intentional to create time to try to get that innocence back again. But this process, you know, like they've been talking about, I mean, it felt like we got back to the core of what we do as a band and how much we love being together, hanging out, drinking, cooking meals, telling stories. I mean,
I will say the headaches after too much wine the next morning were a lot worse this time than they were the
that's a good
last
sign.
time.
For sure. It's a good sign.
What was the first song that kind of bubbled up through all of this?
Heartbreak was the
Okay,
first.
okay.
I mean, that was one of the first ones we wrote when we were in Florida. And I would say when we got that one, we felt like we had a song to write the rest of the album around. And that on that same trip, we wrote This City. We wrote
Good Time to Be Alive.
Good Time to Be Alive. We wrote Big Love in a Small Town, like a lot of songs. I mean, I think we wrote 9 songs in 4 or 5 days, and we cut, I think,
Yeah.
at least half.
Yeah, at least half of them.
Yeah.
It was a special time, and I mean, and I think, you know, recently too, you know, when you put out the music, you never know how fans are going to respond to it. And you know, one of the things Dave had even mentioned, not that awards ever mean, they're not the end all be all at all for us as a group, but it is nice when you feel like your peers are recognizing, you know, the work you've done. And recently, you know, it's been a couple of records since we've gotten a CMA nomination in the album category. And so you think all the hundreds of albums that get put out, and to be one of the 5 that they're mentioning, that was when we all called each other that day and said, this is why we did that, and this is why we took our time, and this is why, you know, we really, you know, put and spilled our, you know, heart and soul into it, is to feel that feeling again of that, not just the recognition, but that you've done something special and that you put it all on the line. And that, I feel like that's what we did with this record.
And you raised an interesting point, because you were quite successful straight
Yeah.
from the get-go. So, and I like this question a lot. So what is your definition of success?
Yeah.
Because you mentioned the awards.
It has changed a lot.
I was
will
about to say, I think it's ever evolving. You know, I think we're very much goal oriented. We've always, you know, when we started, we always have kept forward moving. It's what's the next thing, what's the next thing. Probably sometimes too much to where we're not fully enjoying the present.
Yeah.
I think that the break helped us do that. I think we're all way more present in the joys of getting to do what we love to do now more than ever. It's also a lot sweeter with families, you know, and having our kiddos and our unbelievable spouses. But I would say now success is continuing, you know, longevity, continuing to create together music that inspires us, but also relates to the fans, because without the fans, we wouldn't be able to do this. You know, we wouldn't be able to tour and be here and take our music, you know, around the world. And so I think it's that. I think it's continuing to be a really strong, you know, trio, as, you know, be our best musically, but also as people for our friendship and everything that comes with that. I think that's success.
Right.
And truthfully, having healthy families, because if we don't have healthy, thriving families at home, it makes doing what we do out here a lot harder.